Well, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Geni.app,
They,
GENI.app.
you guys
Honey, you're killing me with this voice.
Benny, kill the voice thing. All right, guys. So let's get this thing started. So, welcome to Roots Crypto Lounge. We're running the AMAs here as part of our DYOR series. So, guys, we have a project in here called Genius. It's got a lot of moving parts. I've done a little bit of homework leading up to this. I do think there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of different mechanics and utilities associated with this. So we do want to go through those in each step and go into detail there. But how we like to kick these things off, guys, is to hand it over to you to tell us a little bit about yourselves. We want to get to know you as project devs and owners first and foremost before we throw money into a fancy white paper or a slick website. We really want to get to know what's behind you guys, what makes you tick, and kind of the direction you have. And that'll lead into questions as we go through the project. But that being said, I'd love to hand it over to you guys. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience, and kind of how you got here today.
Thank you. Thanks for chatting with us on this. My name is Robert Janito, and I've been in crypto I've been mining since early 2011. Mined lots of coins when they're inexpensive, of course. Ended up forming mining companies because I had like 4 different buildings that I had a bunch of mining equipment in. And pivoted to the software area, did a lot of software and blockchain. I was a corporate executive for about 8-9 years. I really paid a lot of attention to how to grow crypto ecosystems and how to onboard users, fiat on ramps, and etc. I worked with the Dash core group for Dash cryptocurrency and got them to number 3. My company worked with Dash core group and another company to get them in larger and larger exchanges and get them to number 3 in the coin market cap. So our campaign was insanely successful. And so we have here Genius, which has been like a research and question for the last 5 to 6 years on, can store of value be programmed? Because we can program money to do our intentions and do the things we want. We can program smart contracts to have little functionalities, but this was, well, if we can program money, why can't we program value? Why can't we just program what people want in the first place? So that's where Genius comes from, and this Genius protocol, Genius Smart Financial Contract. And people do say there are a lot of moving parts, but I think that's because our white paper just has a lot of detail. It gives a lot of information that leaves a lot of questions answered. And as far as the owner's concept, this is one of the most this project and product is designed to be as decentralized entirely, running with no admin keys, no developer coins, and just to be what everybody has wanted in crypto the entire time over these last more than 12 years.
So what would you say that is? What is the thing that people want out of crypto? I mean, me personally, it's come to a place where I want passive income and something that is decentralized that I can use to buy everyday things. I mean, that's me personally. What's your position on that before we go too far?
Well, that is what people want. They want trustless passive income, and they want their value to grow. That's why you have a more than $7 trillion industry in just time locked deposits and such. So yeah, that's what Genius is. Genius, its intent and all of its tokenomics are designed to appreciate value and intended to appreciate value. And that is that's not something that we all just understand just with our intuition. That's something that can be converted to math, and that's what we've done, and that's what the white paper describes, or that's what we believe we've done, and that's what our white paper does its best to describe in over 50 pages.
Absolutely.
And hi guys, this is Digital Diogenes. My name's Zach Catkin. I come from kind of historically a conventional marketing background. Ran one of the largest marketing agencies in Florida, and have been in crypto for going on a decade now. Robert introduced me. Robert and I have been friends for a long time, over 2 decades. So very, very good friends. And he introduced me to crypto back in the beginning days of Bitcoin. and have always been absolutely passionate, insanely passionate about the space. I really, at the time when I first was introduced to crypto, was studying geopolitics and money, economics, etc., and saw it as this space overall as this solution to huge problems that we're seeing in the world right now. So really, really excited to be working on this project. And a number of years ago, I started a consulting firm. So have been kind of teaching and speaking to various groups, usually older groups, about crypto, helping them understand concepts around crypto. Yeah, mostly as a speculator, and now work alongside Robert and helping to spread the word on Genius.
Perfect. All right. Well, I appreciate a little bit about you guys. Before we go into the actual project, are one of you guys the dev or the deployer? Just so we know how to ask the questions going forward.
I've been directing the developers for this, and I also worked with the tokenomics team that developed the tokenomics for this. So I have the most like technical understanding.
Okay. So will there be like a multi-sig with it if you're controlling it and have some people supporting?
Nobody's controlling it, so there's no multi-sig or anything like that.
Okay. So it'll be you steering the ship.
Directing the development and coordinating its deployment. Yes.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the project. Take us from the beginning. I know it's pretty complicated. I want everybody to understand the different mechanics, and also, I guess there is a legacy contract or something out there that's associated with it. So let's get started.
Sounds good. Robert, you want me to take that?
Yeah, sure.
And if you guys want to share screen or anything, feel free to do so, or ping me what you'd like shared in the chat, and I can bring it up as we talk.
Sounds good. Sounds great. I think starting basically, Robert kind of went over this just a moment ago. With his vision, and his vision started 5 years ago, could you design something that essentially, held value and increased in value over time? He mentioned that $7 trillion, time lock deposit industry, which is the conventional financial industry, things like, bonds and CDs and whatnot, where people put money in them or expecting a guaranteed type return or as close to guaranteed as possible. And so, I'm sure we'll get into all the underlying math and tokenomics and specifics of this. But basically what we have is a staking token with a novel staking model, two different kinds of staking. And internally, like with our own nomenclature, a lot of this is, so new. What do you call certain things? What we like to call staking is actually mining, because we think of it very similar to mining a Bitcoin or mining Ethereum, where you're doing some activity, and in exchange for that activity, you're receiving some sort of return. So we have two types of miners or stakes called basic and advanced. Basic is the concept's very simple, slightly less returns, and in exchange for that, or because the nature of that is because those you can break your promise on and not see any sort of penalty or value loss on your principal. So very similar to a conventional banking CD. And then advanced stakes, which is more similar to a lot of the existing, kind of staking tokens that are out there now. Higher penalties on ending stakes early, but in exchange for that larger, more guaranteed commitment, you receive a much higher return on investment, or APY, from the token. And one thing to note is, like other staking tokens, the yield comes from the inflation of the contract or token itself. And then in addition to that, we have other functionality. So there's the staking functionality. There is the auction functionality, which we'll get to in a second, and then stability pool functionality. So kind of these different modules that are a part of the contract. How the auction works is pretty simple. The idea is that, let's say you've got a long-term advanced stake of some kind. It's multi-year. Let's say you've staked $5,000 for 5 years. After 2.5 years, something comes up, there's emergency of some kind. This is kind of one example. I think there's multiple examples of that one could come up with, like actual kind of market examples where maybe a retail trader might use this for different reasons. But emergency happens, they need to access their liquidity faster, how do you design a system that allows that to happen without affecting the larger market, so they don't end stake, dump on the market, et cetera? So the auction is a system available where people interested in Genius can review others that need to end stake early instead of actually just selling or end staking early, taking a penalty and selling on the market. They make available their existing stake or miner. And then there's, I think, there's going to be a market equilibrium where people will essentially pay extra for that extra value because it's been already staked for a while. There's, yield coming to them at the end of the stake. And so it's a great, I think, compromise between dumping on the open market and still needing liquidity immediately. So that's the auction system. And then we've got the stability pool, which is a somewhat complicated system, but it's basically a way for Genius to be backed by a stable coin, which will be DAO or is DAO, sorry, DAI. And there's mechanics in place to keep attention at or have people constantly reviewing the stability pool, both inside of Genius and maybe some external, like retail trade activity kind of at Genius, and constantly be monitoring that for arbitrage opportunities. And the way it's designed is to incentivize people to buy Genius on the open market, feed the stability pool, and effectively kind of buoy the price over time.
Yeah, Zach, if I can say something with there, is that okay if I talk a little bit about initial distribution? Because, no matter how much, anybody talks about these cryptos that sound like great ideas or et cetera, initial distribution is pretty important for, anybody to understand, right? Especially if someone's out there holding like 90% of the coins and nobody knows about that, right? So Genius, in summary, Genius was designed to be a store of value and to increase in value over time, right? So, but how did it first come out into existence, right? Where this whole chicken and egg problem gets solved. The initial distribution for Genius, two ways. One, over a year and a half ago, started with a pre-token, and this pre-token is going to be responsible for at most 14% of the supply. It's looking like it's going to be significantly less than that. I'll tell you why in a second. And this was given to people just based on a promise that they would put up liquidity for it. So it was totally based on trust. And what happened was 98% of the people, they agreed and they did put up liquidity for this, worthless token that just had the promise that it was going to try to become the world's best store of value by learning from all the mistakes of every other crypto out there in the past, learning what every other crypto in the past did correctly and did right and did well, and basically standing on the shoulder of giants. A cryptocurrency, Genius, that is designed by people who have watched this, people who've understood this, people who've paid a lot of attention to the economics in the cryptocurrency space. So this first pre-launch token, it was given out, and these people put up liquidity for it while this project was talked about over a year afterwards without a white paper. And then the white paper came out, and then this is where the other like 85, 86 to 90% of the initial distribution is going to come from. Genius did our community, we did a sacrifice phase, a crypto sacrifice phase. And what that is where, if you go to the website sacrifice.to, that's where there's information about the Genius sacrifice that happened. And this was a sacrifice done. Just to, to talk about Genius itself being a store of value, and or addressing the store of value industry itself, which really collectively is really more than 25 trillion. But you say in the USA alone, it's at least 7 trillion. And that Genius would be a system to create value. So the sacrifice event that happened, this was for people, they were making a statement on that cryptocurrency itself is freedom, like financial freedom and transactional freedom. Basically, that this was that crypto and decentralized assets, they protect crypto and decentralized assets that are protected from like national powers. And that's the best way for people to claim their sovereignty, and strip government of any potential for abuses. Um, so this was like 1776 version 2.0, independence 1776. And so for the sacrifice phase, over $110 million was sacrificed. I mean, there's a calculation to say over $110 million from the community was sacrificed. But if you go by raw exchange value and don't consider some other things, you can argue that it was $51.7 million was sacrificed. This was the largest crypto sacrifice event outside of a Richard Hart project, for example. So everyone who participated in that sacrifice and sent their coins, whatever coins, to some dummy burn address. Well, I wouldn't call it a burn address, but who sent it to here, they get 86% of the distribution. Other than that, there's no developer coins, so no rug pull. I did have an initial pre-token amount of coins along with the liquidity providers, but I burned that, so no one could scream dev rug pull.
Got it. Is there something, so this is interesting to me because I'm, like I said at the beginning, I'm always looking for passive income, and especially the less control that the devs have of a contract, the more automated it is, the more variables that can be used to figure out the distributions, like the better. So I think you guys are onto something here. Is there something that you've kind of modeled, this after? Like I've seen some projects that have some similarities. Is there something that you guys said, we saw a project that was similar, but we have a better way to solve it? You know what I mean? Like, is there something that you guys have been a part of in the past where this came from?
Well, I would say the bulk of the inspiration the bulk of like the inspiration for Genius itself came from Bitcoin, Dash, Steam, and Hex. Now, it doesn't work like Bitcoin, Dash, Steam, or Hex, but they all had unique failures, and they also had very unique, very strong tokenomics, very influential.
Got it. Okay, so where are you guys at in the development stage? So from what I was reading, there's no set launch date for everything, but what's been done to date, and kind of what are you guys focused right now?
Well, the Genius itself is completely done, and that was going to be launched a couple days ago. One of our more research kind of devs that deals a lot with our math, it said, "Hold on a second, there's something that might be a little serious here that we all looked into." It's very similar to, it's kind of annoying, but when you're on an airplane, you're about to take off. I'm sure this happened to at least one person listening here, maybe multiple people, but or everybody. You're about to take off an airplane and it's delayed, and you're just like, "Why is this delayed?" You might be sitting there for an hour, and it just turns out that one of the engineers saw something that may have been an issue with the engine and just wanted to make sure that wasn't the case. So you sat there on the airplane until it was safe to go. So that's where we're at. The protocol is entirely done. This has been a very well organized, well thought out protocol. Um, the devs are still researching this item and looking into stuff on that. It's complex, but that goes to say about the strong due diligence that has happened and that has gone over with Genius for security and review. We brought in very early. We brought in an independent security auditor, and Certic is a third party, is also auditing our code and nearly done with their review. And then we brought some extra fixes to their attention so they could review that too. Yeah, so where we stand now is just we're in the very late stages, or I'd say early launch stages of ensuring that all T's have been crossed, all I's dotted, all just going over things from a different point of view to ensure that there are no problems and there won't be any problems. Granted, Genius is the first contract I know of that has an ability to, how like with Uniswap, you had Uniswap version 1, then you had Uniswap version 2, and Uniswap version 3. The same thing with Aave, you had different versions. and these all people could migrate their liquidity, to the newer version, but this wasn't completely autonomous, and no oracles and etc. Genius is the first contract I know of that has an ability to exodus onto other contracts without affecting current users and other things like that. But hey, long story to your answer there is, um, hey, we're done. We're just making sure that that the concern that came up is not a big concern and that it is resolved appropriately.
Are those concerns something that you guys have had to make modifications for, or changes on the fly, or is it more so you're just going through the steps and precautionary measures to ensure that it's going to be safe and in the form that you intended it to be?
That's a really good question. I appreciate that question. Well, when we find that, um, when that discovery was made, um, you see, when it's made, we have to do more research, so to say, because when you have, everybody, many technologists are very aware that when you have a project, you build test cases. Let's say you have a website, a financial website. You build unit tests on the financial side to ensure that all your math is correct, and then you build all sorts of behavioral tests and such on the front end, right? So every time you make changes, you can test that they're all giving the same result. Now here with Genius, this is a lot like testing a video game where there are billions and billions and billions of different outcomes. And with one of our algorithms and processes that drastically reduces gas fees for the end user, that had over 44 million possibilities that we had to write specific software just to test those. And of course, that took quite a bit of computing and time. And when it comes to the miners themselves, there's hundreds of millions of possibilities, right? And these aren't things that can be checked right away. So what you get at is you can't make all these possibilities, right? None of us can reasonably sit down and hire 300 people and then make and test those exact expectations, right? We can't do that. So there's also like a theoretical approach and a math approach, improving math and etc. So the issue we found was just for what we were experienced to seeing, it didn't look right. Now, what sucks about that is, well, we don't know if it's just some additional, just discovery on the behavior of the tokenomics, although those have been simulated for over a year now. So we wanted to look into it, and it looked like something that could definitely not be favorable, and harm somebody's usage, and we don't want that to happen to anybody. So we have to like strategize our approach, which we strategized of how we would go about not only researching that, but how we would go about um, how we would go about um, well, finding out what areas of our math that's going to touch, what any additional potential risks are, and ensure that none of those are going to be a problem. Now, if any of you are Solidity developers, it's things like overflows, underflows, but a little more complicated than that. This is the boring stuff.
No, I understand, and I can appreciate wanting to get to that level of information. And you guys have been very transparent and posted this information in your chat. I'm just trying to figure out as I was looking at the website, I was clicking around and it had the the time until launch to be determined. That's why I asked that question. And then the buy pre tokens. And I'm just trying to understand what the pre token is as it relates to the main token or the main utility of the actual project. I'm just trying to connect 2 to 2 together. If I'm thinking it, I'm sure some
Mhm.
others maybe listening might have the same question.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a great question. The pre token is it's like your ticket to ensure that you have early access to this Genius system. Um, every day Genius pays rewards out to everyone who is mining, right? And let's say in 6 months from now, there's 100,000 miners, right? 100,000 different, stakes that are mining for Genius. Those 100,000 aren't going to come on day one, right? And the Genius rewards, they're distributed proportionally, based on the number of shares these miners own. They're distributed proportionally to all the miners. So every day, rewards are paid out. But here's the thing: that reward amount, in the very beginning, you're not going to have 100,000 miners. That's just how it is. Um, it is most likely scenario that you're going to have some of the least number of miners at the very beginning. So what does that mean? That means that the reward payouts are going to go to a fewer number than, a week later or 2 weeks later or a month later, right? So this pre-token is a way to, has always been a way to ensure, the pre-token, it does nothing. It's a very basic token. You can't do staking with it, no mining. All you can do is use the official Genius dApp to burn it in exchange for the official Genius and mining.
Got
So
it.
people who have the pre-token, they're like guaranteed that early access versus, going to the market and there's, a bunch of traders buying the price up just to dump on you and all this drama.
And will those early access have higher yields or greater returns? Is that kind of the reason for getting this early access or this place in line, so to speak?
Yeah, if the well, I may as well not even say if, but because we're all very familiar how in the very beginning of cryptocurrency, there's typically the least number of users like ever for a successful cryptocurrency. So that's correct. The rewards that get paid out daily are going to go to a smaller pool of people. So therefore, proportionally, your first miners are going to get paid the most, and then that will diminish to a value that is fair to the market as more miners come in.
Well, and if I can add, when you purchase Legacy Genius today, if someone were to do that, when we launch, there are bonuses for the process of effectively minting the final tokens. So if you buy, for example, one Legacy Genius today, when we launch, it's 1,000 times multiplier because the total market token volume essentially is a bit different between the legacy one and the final one. And then that kind of goes down, retches down slowly over the course of a month. And then eventually, at any point in time, let's say you had one or two legacy Genius tokens, 2 months down the road after launch, you realize, oh yeah, I have that token. I want the final version of the Genius token. The conversion rate is 16.9, if I got that right, Robert, for the legacy Genius to Genius minting. So there is it's effectively 1,000 times bonus if you buy the legacy version. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, gentlemen. For the reward, what is the reward in the legacy token, or what is the reward for mining?
Okay. So just like with Bitcoin mining, with Bitcoin every 10 minutes, yeah, I don't remember is it 6.25 or 6.125? Every 10 minutes with Bitcoin, more Bitcoin comes out, right? And it's paid to miners. Let's just simplify it that way. With Genius, that happens every day. The reward payout goes out to everyone. Now, or all the miners. In the Bitcoin world, you're using your hash power, you're using your electricity, you're submitting your work to a pool that submits work to the Bitcoin protocol itself, and then whoever gets the right hash that the network is targeting to find, they're awarded with a Bitcoin, right? Now, with Genius, you take your you take your Genius principal, we'll call it, and you use the app to lock that principal into a miner. When you lock it in there, you tell the app how many days you intend to lock it up for. So you can lock it up for 1 day all the way up to like 12 years. And So the amount of principal that you put in there, that's kind of like your hash power, right? The more principal you put, the more hash power you have, so to say. But the longer that you run that, the longer that you intend, the longer that you promise to run that miner, you start to get a stronger weight of how much shares of this reward pool you get. So when you create a when you create a Genius miner, uh, your miner is getting allocated shares, relative to everyone else. And that the number of shares you get, it's based on how much Genius principal you put up, but it's more influenced by how long you have those staked for, you have them mined for. And so every day, the rewards of this, you could say proof of waiting, you could say the proof of this promise. The longer, um, oh sorry, so every day, the people who've made that commitment, they're getting paid proportionally based on how many shares they have. So those are the main rewards for Genius that go out to everyone.
So yeah, the short answer is yes. The inflation of Genius is distributed to the miners.
Okay, so it's in the native of
Exactly.
the legacy. Okay. And what are the limits that you guys have for the locking?
Well, and you just said before the legacy, just to be absolutely clear, the legacy is totally going away once we launch. Obviously, if anybody has any remaining legacy at any time, the DApp, the contract, will allow them to mint the final, just called Genius token. But legacy was literally just, I would say, an absolutely brilliant incentive solution to the chicken and egg problem that Robert invented. To how do you start a project with no liquidity, no market, etc., onboard people in the most fair way possible. Like to this day, anybody can still get on, even though we haven't launched yet. There's no like early bird specials, other than obviously, you guys maybe haven't heard of us until recently. So there is kind of the proximity of marketing or awareness of a project. But all the legacy token is for is, will you eventually get access to or have your own final Genius tokens? So once launched, it'll essentially go away. And just to be absolutely clear on that. So
Okay, so yeah. So the staking hasn't occurred yet, but once or the mining. So once the Genius is fully ready to go off, the legacy will be ended, and you guys will bring the LP and the MC over, or how will that work?
Yeah, so if you have the legacy token, you're going to want to use the Genius app to get rid of it, to mint the new Genius, because the new Genius does a lot more stuff, does what you want. The legacy token just sits there and does nothing, and it will continue to do nothing even when Genius is launched. The only real thing it can do is be minted into the official Genius token itself. And so you're right. So staking hasn't occurred yet, other than in beta and on testnet. Like you can go to beta.geni.app, beta.geni.app, and you can test around, you can play with it. And once it is ready to go off, the legacy Genius, that stuff will end. And when it comes to liquidity providers and such, with the legacy Genius pre-token, there's very little liquidity with it right now, because many of the liquidity providers, they took place in our sacrifice event. Many liquidity providers pulled their liquidity, and they're saving it to mint it once Genius launches. The only liquidity providers I'm aware of right now are people that are just hoping a bunch of Genius gets dumped on them, so they have more Genius when Genius launches, right? So other than that, we have for the new Genius, we have about 100 different liquidity providers that have registered with the community and just said, hey, we're going to provide liquidity because it has to come from somewhere, right? We're going to provide liquidity. We look forward to seeing how this works, how this happens. So Genius is, what you're going to see is you're going to see one of the best launched coins ever. very organized, working from the beginning, has as much of an ecosystem as you can build without a product itself. Very organized. And I think people are going to be extremely excited by that, and it's gonna show many other. It's going to lead a new trail of expectations that people are going to have for other cryptos, that they do the same thing, that they have the same due diligence. I think people are going to be really happy.
Now, without going too much into it, when it launches, are you worried about, bots, or is the contract, unable to be botted?
I'm not worried about bots. Digital, how about yourself? I mean, it comes up a lot, right?
No, I mean, I'm personally no, I don't. I'm not sure the. I think wasn't there something with the OA, the way you structured it, that helped with that? Or
Well,
am I mistaken on that?
well, with the development team and even the tokenomics team before we began development, really our biggest worry was, well, not worry, biggest worry, our the thing that we're looking out for, right, would be like other competing coins um, doing like spam on the contract to screw with Genius's tokenomics. Those had all been taken care of. So, when it comes to like, I mean, even when it comes to like, a bunch of bots looking to front run people on Uniswap, like something simple like that, like miner extracted value, sandwich attacks. Um, if there's more attention on Genius on that, yeah, that can happen. However, we have our stability pool where that cannot happen. Genius's stability pool, it's meant to work with other. It's it's meant to exist in a world where there are decentralized exchanges, in a world where there are centralized exchanges. But the stability pool gets rid of things like, these minor extracted values, get rid of getting front run or sandwich attacked with your trades. Um, but like with sniping bots, etc., where they attempt to get in before other people and then dump. That's why we have the legacy token. People can get in as they want instead of there just being some event that people wait for, right? So while you can't while you can't prevent it indefinitely, and other bots will do that anyways, just because they don't know the project too well, people today can get legacy Genius and not have to worry about it today because bots aren't sniping us, through the whole life of the pre-token.
Now, I was looking through your website. You guys have one of the most thorough link trees that I've seen, in crypto. You're giving a lot of information, but for the project itself, or like, giving bite-sized pieces where you can kind of, you have a community that's already been informed, but there is going to be a flood of other people that are going to come in. Have you made videos, to pretty much give them bit-sized pieces to describe each part of it, part of the structure?
That's a great idea. Great question. I would say not yet. That would be a fantastic. Just strictly from a feature standpoint, no. So far, it's been conceptual. Here's what we're trying to achieve. But I think that would be an absolute great addition to our existing marketing. Like quite literally, here are, in breaking down simply, the mining or staking portions, and then the auction and the stability pool, how they work and what their intended value is. That would, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense.
Yeah, there are like, I mean, I don't know how many hours of myself, talking, going over some tokenomic stuff on live streams that I've done, and answering many, many, many questions. But I've seen like 2-minute clips, 30-second clips, 1-minute clip, from the community. Taking clips from those videos just to explain things simply, to others. So yeah, there's a lot of bite-sized chunks for here that people are going to want to know. This is really, it's a product that it's different, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something where you can really learn a lot about it by experiencing and using it. However, people still want information, they want to learn about things, and yeah, I hope the community continues doing that. I know I will, because it's helpful.
Yeah, because even though this isn't like a brand new idea, I mean, your version is your version, but it's not a brand new idea. But we saw what happened, with Rebase. When Rebase made a comeback, people were screaming, you're taking my tokens. Why do I have more tokens? And a lot of it, can't be kind of front run if you give the people that are incoming. Now, some people will buy this token and not know anything about it. So, the important thing is like as they come in and they go, what's going on? What's this? What's that? They have those little pieces that can kind of satisfy them so then they could do their, own research. Unfortunately, people buy it and probably don't know what's going on and just will look at the price, go up and down and whatnot. But I think, giving them that little, a visual representation, when you could throw at somebody, like if they're brand new, you could have like maybe a filter, a brand new filter. Like, oh, are you new? Video, boom, or audio, boom. So they get more informed to the project.
Yeah, true. We have that. That's a great idea. Thank you. There's many different point of views out there, and no, I think that's a great idea. I really appreciate you saying that because it's like we also, while the idea of mining or staking totally not new, having a token that's designed to be valuable, not new. It's like we have a lot of these new tokenomics concepts. Like there's over 30 and nearly 40 buy positive concepts or buy positive mechanics, adding buying pressure mechanics or adding demand, um, lowering supply without negatively affecting it. So there's all these these are things that are really good to know and really cool, but you can't just like dump them on somebody, right? You just like, here you go. Um, like for example, who would have thought that you could have on chain or on contract liquidity for a token, and every time somebody gets liquidity from that, the price of the liquidity and that people get offered, instead of it dropping and going down, the price actually goes up. Like that's a very like space age kind of concept. Like, hold on a second. When you sell something, the price is supposed to go down, right? But we have tokenomics in place that increase the price. Now, when you see it mathematically, if you're a math person, it makes sense. And you go, oh shit, wow, why didn't I think about that? Wow, that's interesting. Okay. Instead of giving the fees to a central party, because there's no central party, it stays in there. And how the math works out, the price just rises higher until liquidity's gone or people do a market arbitrage. Hope that makes sense, but it's right. We have a lot of we have a lot of great information here. How are we gonna introduce that? How's the community gonna introduce that without over inundating people? And I think as people are excited and they're doing well with it, many different people will communicate it in many different ways, just like what happened with Bitcoin. So that's the best that I hope for.
I will say, Bromo just posted in the group chat and Rudes there the clip channel that we do have, the one that Robert was talking about, which has a lot of little explainer videos. But I do think that your question sparked a great idea, which is quite literally and taking a video of the app itself. Here's how to use it. Here's why you'd use it. Here's how to effectively mine. And I think the real interesting thing here, and it's the major problem that I can see in all of crypto, kind of going back to that experience of frankly teaching really old people stuff about Bitcoin, is it's challenging in terms of what's nice about a community like yours, like the community we've built, is they're all familiar with crypto. They all understand three and decentralized apps and things like Uniswap. But we're absolutely positively on the bleeding edge of technology. Your average person is not, and so there's a lot of different audiences to speak to. But I agree that even if we don't want anybody aping in without understanding things, and some basics around, hey, here's literally how you mine, literally how the stability pool works and how to use it, and that would be a great addition. And I'm going to drop in some stuff too. I'm going to throw them to Bromo, some of our existing kind of explainer things that we have from a PDF standpoint, because as Robert said, there's just an unbelievable amount of interesting things on this project to talk about. There's the main features, but then there's, all kinds of interesting tokenomics or ways that Robert set it up with the team. Things like he had mentioned, the liquidity providers that we have on board for launch for the final actual contract and token. It's absolutely unheard of, 100 liquidity providers, and we're pretty stoked about that. So I'll be dropping those to Bromo to share, and I hope I'm saying that right.
Now, leading to the the launch of when it's coming, what type of marketing do you feel is going to be more effective for your, because a lot, again, like we said before, the information is going to be, forefront, but what type of marketing are you going to tap into? Because it's not as easy as like, most projects that come in, you got your buy, you got your sell, you got maybe utility or use case. You guys have a whole infrastructure. So how are you going to properly get people into the door that, aren't part of your community?
Well, we
Yeah,
have,
Zach,
I have,
if I can start that on Zach, I'll be humble and let you know, I'm not a marketing person, me personally, but what I've seen the community, from like I think not even 100 members 6 to 7 months ago to about like 3,500 members, at least in the Telegram itself, and Twitter constantly growing, and my channel and Twitter growing. Um, what I can see is that the community itself is doing a lot marketing and promoting this, a lot of different things, getting people really excited, um, and having digital Diogenes here, having Zach deal with a lot of this has really taught me a lot. But yeah, Zach, I just wanted to introduce that and say I'm not a marketing person, but I see a lot of people marketing this, and I'm learning.
yeah. So it's been an interesting journey. It's I would say partially decentralized, and I see it becoming more decentralized over time. And that's one thing I'd love to instill in our community and everybody that joins, that if you like this tool, you find this tool useful, spread the word. And also keeping in mind what Robert said about the industry as a whole, the market that this addresses is a vast, 20+ trillion dollar market. And that's where, getting potentially down the road, for example, pension funds, hedge funds, individual investors, individual mom and pops who basically might look at this as an alternative to a conventional banking CD. So it's going to span the gamut. I know, at first, the nice thing here is, even though it is complicated, we have a vast number of people in crypto to start to get in front of. And, as Robert said, really, we only started marketing this since about April or so. And we've grown slowly and steadily, very organically. Really, no paid influencers or anything like that to start. And we have a phenomenal base of holders day one. I think it's about 2,000 people between the sacrifice and current holders of Geni waiting for launch. So I see our strategic kind of short-term, mid-term, long-term vision as crypto to start. There's some low-hanging fruit there. We're already, kind of making waves at multiple times during this last year and in this bear market with our price increases. We were up about 1.5 times in the last week or so. We've come down a little bit because of the launch, but we're still up from there about 50%. So to be performing so well in a bear market has been phenomenal. So like I said, starting crypto, it'll be easier to onboard those, people in the crypto space, because the communication as far as the technicalities of the product will be easier. But then we see a larger vision as far as direct communication, direct onboarding of people just in the conventional financial space. And I know Robert and I have talked about some big ideas for kind of simpler fiat on ramps. And then as far as specifics, we certainly have a number of really cool things lined up as far as exchanges. I was actually just talking to an exchange today. We plan on getting on a number of exchanges. And that's something I have to give Robert credit for. As he said, learning from we're standing on the shoulders of giants and learning from other cryptos in the past. Some of these projects, the way they've launched, the way they've held or held on to or designed their tokens did not lend themselves to being onboarded onto centralized exchanges that well. But with this, we have the ability to do so, and we'll be hitting that avenue pretty hard.
I'd just like to add, I just like that here, like, Genius. So Zach and many in the community members, they're marketing this, they're doing different things. We talk about exchanges, how you just have to work, no matter how decentralized this world is. We're still at a point where leadership is very important, and a lot of these centralized exchanges, are leaders to onboarding people. Let's look at it this way. So myself, it's just looking at what makes a great product. Like, Genius is the only thing majorly up in this bear market. Genius is up 120x in the last 5 months. Of course, that's the pre-token. So that's I just come from the philosophy of that, to simply make a great product. And to do that, you've got to know your audience. You have to hyper focus on that audience. And who is the audience here? It's like savings, retirement, passive income. Like, I don't want a bank to manage my savings. Like, I'm trying to say it kindly, but really how it comes out is hell no. I do not want a bank to manage my savings. 401k, not interested in that. Roth IRAs, SEPs, no thank you. Like, so when it comes to my personal savings for retirement, I want the blockchain to do that. And I've had the blockchain doing that for many years. And I want Genius to do that. And many people feel the same. People, they want to make the most of their savings. So here, I'm hyper focused on making a great product that is, you got to know your audience to do that. You got to hyper focus on them. And maybe that's why Genius, so far the white paper, et cetera, the things that people know about Genius, it's still an idea right now. There's not the app, but that idea, it's powerful, and our implementation, must reflect that idea as perfectly as possible. And maybe that's why we're up 120x. But it's got to be useful. If it's useful, people will use it. It won't go away. If the internet wasn't useful, the internet would have died when everybody said it was going to die 25 years ago. If Bitcoin wasn't useful, it would have died when everybody said it wasn't useful, 10 years ago and prior.
Now, recently, with the rise of liquid staking, do you feel like once you guys launch, you'll have a large amount of TVL?
Sorry, TVL? What does that stand for?
Total value locked.
Yes.
Well, let's see. You have like today, you have like 2 billion locked in Hex. Last time I checked for Aave, I think it may have been 12 billion. And then Uniswap is like 5 or 6 billion right now. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on any of those numbers. These are like what I'd last seen. So, okay, I just checked for Uniswap alone. I see that's like 3.8 billion. Now remember, 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. It was just freaky that there was like $1 million in locked value for decentralized exchanges. For Bancore, Uniswap One, it was just kind of like freaky, like, woohoo, we hit $1 million. This is amazing. And then it hit like billions, right? Now for total locked value, from what it seems like with the community, it seems like we're a very high percentage of Genius itself will be locked up. I mean, granted, we're in a bear market. There are people who, are really hurting, financially. And, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in whatever direction. I really don't know. I really don't know. Maybe the first 3 months. I mean, I'll be excited. if 25% of Genius is locked up, and to see what value that is, that'll be really cool. I look forward to seeing that.
All right, guys. As we wrap up the AMA, looking over the website and your social media, everything looks good. The only suggestions I would say is that once you guys are live with the regular Genius token, just make sure some people forget, but make sure you, especially for Dex tool scores and whatnot, make sure you get your socials up there. Which I don't foresee being a problem seeing that link tree. Link tree is that was one of the biggest link trees I've seen in a while. But again, you guys are being transparent with everything, so I appreciate getting as much knowledge as I can. So before we close out, anything you guys want to leave us with that we haven't gone over yet?
I think we've pretty much covered everything. I really appreciated this AMA. It was a little bit different format than I think we've had in the past. We've gotten into the weeds on some of the technicalities, but as far as how the auction works and the math on the staking, but we really appreciate being here. I think we've covered everything, Rob, unless there's something.
Well, I would also say, what I would also say is, check out this domain, geni.to/smart contract, geni.to/smart contract. It is the white paper. It's a lot of information, but you read a little bit here and there. You go to the to YouTube, look up stuff on this information. The more you consume about it, like you go to geni.to/YouTube, and that'll bring you to a lot of other live streams and such. But if you're curious about these things, I'd say Genius is it's not something I would not want to know about at all. I've been in crypto for 12 years, and when you find one of those diamonds in the rough, like I find them maybe every 3 years ish, 2 to 3 years ish. It's very exciting, and you learn a lot when you learn about it. So I would just say, and there's so many of these tokens out there. It's like, what do I put my attention on? This is inundating, because everybody's vying to get you to get into their crypto, right? But I'd just like to say, this is absolutely worth your attention. Check it out. Don't sleep on this one. This is going to be something that you'll kick yourself in the ass for if you didn't at least look at it and give it a look.
Oh yeah, one thing we didn't bring up was the fact that we are going to be launching on 3 separate blockchains.
Oh, true.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
Ethereum
apparent in any of our.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, and with Pulse Chain when that comes out. Yeah.
Yep.
So people who have no problem paying super high fees, they can love it in the Ethereum world, and then people who it's not economical for them to pay 50 cents or more for a transaction, they want to pay less than 50 cents or even less than 10 cents at times. That's where you'll have Binance Smart Chain users and probably Pulse Chain users. And so anyone can get in on this. Anybody can check it out.
All right. Thank you again, guys. I forwarded your Telegram. So if you guys have any information that are listening, make sure you go over to the Telegram. As always, do your own research. And thank you again for coming. And also, when you guys are getting closer to launch, hit up Bromo or Drat so we can get some updates and we can put them in the chat.
Cool. Thank you.
Do. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, have a good one.
Take care.
Yeah.
Love you.
Good night,
Love you too. Good night.